What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Make sure to like and sub, and let's get into this. So just seconds after finishing a video explaining what's going on in the video game industry right now. Of course, the spotlight is on Sweet Baby Inc., but that is just one front of a multi-front battle. It is the same thing that is happening in Hollywood. And here we have a video from Nerdrotic himself, who is 9,000, probably a little less, subs away from 1 million subs. Let's go. Make sure to go and check it out over on Gary's channel. This is, of course, just like a breakdown of his video. I haven't watched it yet, but obviously I'm going to watch it right now, react, and we're going to break it down as we go. Road to 1 million for Gary. And yeah. How bad can it get for woke Hollywood? The woke Hollywood that my uncle just doesn't think exists, despite all evidence to the contrary. I guess he's just imagining all that lost money and no one giving a shit about anything anymore. But let's see, how bad can it get for woke Hollywood?
Happens in that town, in that area, where the people that think outside of the norm say it in like whispered, hushed tones. Mm-hmm. There's a certain ideology that's attached to that city, and it's not
captured people.
Completely insulated left-wing view of the world.
When it comes time to taking positions about issues, I have tried really hard over the years, and I'm not calling them politics because a lot of them are not politics. Sometimes it's what is right, what is wrong.
They enforce it with an iron fist. And if you're not on that team, you don't get booked for things. You don't get picked for things.
They also say you're going to be on the wrong side of history because they think they're going to be the ones writing it.
If you're someone who has conservative leanings, or you talk about, there's projects you're never going to get. They'll malign you and, without knowing you at all, be openly prejudiced about you. So everyone who goes over there who's just like desperately trying to make it, the last thing they want to do is do something and talk about something that's going to politically get them at odds with the people that run the studios. Mm-hmm. So no one does. Everybody just follows.
And all of the leaked emails from the WGA that Chris Gore and Alan Ng have tirelessly brought to us through the D files, and Pixar and all the studios that were taken over. They used Me Too to push out all the talent, and then hired people from Tumblr and Reddit and influencers. No one knew what they were doing except for the people who knew what they were doing, and they were using that power to power grab. And look at the results. It's a company of fear. Either guilty white people virtue signaling, or guilty white people going along with it, and then everyone else just capitalizing on the chaos.
The same sort of wacky ideology that these people take from the universities. They go straight into working as a PA and straight into working for executives and producers, and all of those people are indoctrinated. They're all in this wild-ass cult of weirdness.
During an altercation at a Hilo...
And remember, these are the people that were when Brett Weinstein and Jordan Peterson were saying, no, they're taking over the colleges. And people were, that's just some liberal arts college. Who gives a shit? They'll get out into the real world, and they'll get the real world wise them up pretty quick. And what did the real world do? Well, the real world now has DEI inclusion standards and 83 genders, and men can be women and women can be men, and men can be pregnant. Oh, it's just amazing.
Karaoke bar.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
That's a storm of anxiety. Just
absolutely.
A hurricane of confusion, Zoloft, and everyone's losing their mind, and everyone's in therapy, and everyone's nuts, and everyone's trans. It's out of touch.
Yeah.
It's just a crazed cult.
So what is happening in Hollywood? Nobody knows. The worst thing to call somebody is crazy. Is dismissive. I don't understand this person, so they're crazy. That's bullshit. These people are not crazy. They're strong people. Maybe the environment is a little sick.
Yeah, Dave tried to tell us.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 991,000 awakening wonders and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. Despite the recent and impressive box office success of Dune, Our good friends at Hollywood are looking at some dark times.
Of which the video I made has half the people saying it's not woke, and then half the people say yes, it is woke, and fighting amongst each other because even the audience can't agree if it's the traditional classic woke of just means being socially aware, which I would argue it hasn't meant that in quite some time, or the more modern version when we're saying woke, we mean all these horrible little ideologies from LGBTIQ plus whatever agendas to the traditional F-men, and it's all just neo-Marxism. But yeah, it's just funny that we still were arguing about it.
How can a giant, influential, although not so much recently, industry that survived wars,
Obese.
recessions, depressions, and previous strikes be on decline? Some would argue, including yours truly, that while Hollywood was always a bit off, but then a certain orange man arrives and
Everyone loses their mind.
Broke.
along with Me
A lot of
Too,
people.
which might have started in a genuine place, but turned into a giant power grab and fraud. But still, things were good thanks to the economy brought on by that orange man. The investor money was flowing and that golden goose of streaming was right around the corner. Sure, this was the beginning of the era of making the audience the enemy, but not to worry because they were all bigots and the modern audience was there to replace them. And Hollywood became woke Hollywood, unfortunately.
Gary, I love you so much. This is it. This is really what they tried to do.
For them, reality hit, and we all know what happened next. Rooting on lockdowns while they were allowed to work during the coof, cringe celebrity videos. Rooting on the summer of love from the comfort of their $1 million mansions while everyone was locked down. Did I mention they were allowed to work through that? Oh, yes, I did. Which in turn led to more cringe celebrity videos. Propagandized content and taking part in fortifications, which exacerbated the decline of the award show, the decline of late night talk.
Oh, he danced with syringes. Brought to you by Pfizer.
And the decline of broadcast television. Let's not forget that they abandoned the theaters, but when they came back in the year of the flopbuster, the Writers Guild and the Film Actors Guild decided to have a 6-month strike, all while the streaming bubble burst, leading to the inevitable shrinkage, which have led to massive layoffs, a corporate rebellion within Disney and Paramount is for sale, and the current problem, the introduction of segregationist rules with DEI, leading to headlines like the coming cinema apocalypse is here and death spiral of Hollywood monopolies. What's a giant industry filled with
But this is just imaginary. There's no such thing as woke Hollywood. Everything's fine.
multinational corporations to do? It's not like they didn't have time to fix these problems over the last 6 or 7 years, but instead they decided to blame you and think everything was great. And now they're headed to the long, dark power lunch of the soul where they're going to stare deeply into their navels.
Thumbs up their asses. Thumbs up their asses.
And this has led to the New York Times, of all places, asking, how bad can it get for Hollywood?
A lot worse, by the way. This is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. They're just now realizing they're in trouble. They're still going to double down and they're going to try and pivot, and they're going to try and hide it now a little bit more, but it's going to get worse for sure.
Well, spoilers, pretty fucking bad. As usual with these corporate legacy media articles, they hit some good points and then they miss the giant Lizzo in the room. Now, this is an opinion piece from cultural critic Mike Harris, but I would argue every article in the New York Times is an opinion piece. For Hollywood, 2023 was not so much a disaster as a preview of disasters to come. Wow. Sure. One of the big stories last year was the Barbenheimer phenomenon. 2 celebrated hits that marched arm in arm towards a combined 21 Oscar nominations, but everywhere else you look, the prognosis is grim. I seem to recall that a few YouTubers and a large portion of Tinseltown's audience saying that the prognosis for woke Hollywood has been grim for quite some time. The industry, still staggering back from the pandemic shutdowns, was hit with twin strikes that brought production to a halt for 6 months, where the unions fell right into the producer's trap. All of this is happening as the industry seems to realize in unison that those streaming services, those wondrous platforms that were going to carry the town into the future like magic carpets, maybe aren't the panacea after all.
They got too complacent. 600 productions down to 300 this year.
And hanging over all of this anger and anxiety is the menace of AI, which threatens every human part of the creative food chain, from the writers who pen scripts, to the actors whose faces fill the screen, to theoretically the studio executives whose jobs are piloting hits. And yes, this is a very real concern. Tyler Perry halts $800 million studio expansion, citing concerns over OpenAI's Sora. He was going to add 12 more sound stages, which would have employed a lot of people.
By the way, you can delay it as long as you want. You're not going to stop it. It is inevitable. That is a Pandora's box that has already been opened. AI is here. It's here.
But all of that is currently and indefinitely on hold because of Sora and what I'm seeing. I also seem to recall that a few YouTubers, a giant portion of Tinseltown's audience, a couple of rogue executives, and anonymous members from the WGA and the Film Actors Guild warning that 2023 might not be the best time for a strike. And it would lead to things like massive.
And we're hearing now the Teamsters, IATSE, or whatever the hell, they're going to go on strike soon. So it's sort of all going to be delayed again.
Layoffs, multiple canceled projects, and overall contraction. Well, the year 2023 was a time of downsizing, diminishment, shelving, sidelining, retrenching, retreating, and bet hedging. And 2024 is the year of consequences.
No shit.
F around and find
The
out.
plain fact is that, thanks to the strikes, there simply aren't enough movies and new shows in the pipeline, to give the business the boom year it badly needs. Those are all very good points, but he still seems to be missing one. Let's see if he gets there. For Hollywood, it will take at least a full year. It's going to take a lot longer than that for the supply lines to start flowing at capacity again. And there are fewer supply lines than there used to be. Only 5 of the legacy media companies still operate as traditional studios, and one of those, Paramount, is up for sale. I guess the Sheridan-verse couldn't counteract the perpetual flushing toilet that's Kurtzman Trek, but I'm sure season 5...
And the ESG money's running out. It's running out, and they know streaming's not profitable. You saw Amazon add in that ad tier, which is they're getting sued for that one. But yeah, they know it's not profitable.
5 of Star Trek Discovery is going to pump up those sub numbers. As for new projects, the industry's current whispered motto seems to be, after Male and Pale is stale, just survive until 25. Writers and producers pitching projects are being warned to keep expectations at basement level. Nobody's buying. Everybody's cutting costs. Caution rules, and the boom times are over.
I guess that means with new stuff, because meanwhile, Netflix just announced books 2 and 3 of Avatar.
I feel I should have seen that coming.
Now, most of this article goes over the history of Hollywood and all it survived, like I did at the beginning of the video. Again, it survived wars, recessions, depressions, a war with itself over the commies that were infiltrating the industry, and well, hell, that's the same problem now. And while that is a major problem, they still haven't talked about the biggest one, but it does seem that the one thing Hollywood couldn't survive was itself. That's where the movie business is right now. The system, it seems, is once again sick of itself. The industry has, for the past 4 years, been wondering when it can get back to normal, and it's becoming increasingly clear that there may be no such thing.
I was going to say, I don't even know what the hell that means. You're not going to be allowed. You will never be allowed to go back to the way it was unless you excise that ideology, and I don't know how they do that.
There is only forward to something new. The industry is about to find out what that might look like. Unfortunately for woke Hollywood, you've already stated in this article what this looks like. A grim prognosis, dire consequences, and way past the point of no return. And I hate to be
It looks like maybe 1 or 2 good movies a year, maybe 1 or 2 good series, and then everyone else just coming on YouTube or playing video games, if we can lock that down. Hi, we're your new media, because that's what it is. It's the Iron Age now.
The bearer of bad news. That's not exactly true. There might be another strike right around the corner.
Oh, good.
That's right. Yeah. IATSE, not to be confused with Teamsters, which is all the stage and craft workers, amongst the many others, warn of another Hollywood strike.
By the way, they have inclusion standards too. I know they're showing a white guy, but 3 out of 5 need to come from an underrepresented group, even for the craft services. Yeah, it's true.
The massive rally, put your helmets on. And the Teamsters, who are known to have a squeaky clean past as far as their operations are concerned, are serious with this announcement, which includes a stunning admission at the end.
Now it's time, brothers and sisters, to make them aware that if they thought they had a fight last summer, that they can't even predict what's going to happen to them now. You think they would have learned last year when they took on 2 strong unions? We don't care about consequences for our actions. We don't care about public relations. What we care about is making certain that our members who make these white-collar crime syndicates the success they are. What? What the fuck? It's not about what they're going to give us. It's about what we're going to demand and take moving forward.
Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Teamster, where you openly admit that you support and make successful what you call a criminal organization.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
And again, that strike could happen this summer, which could potentially lead to more delays. And even if it does,
YouTubers like, please strike. But because if you don't know, YouTube numbers shot up during COVID and then again during the strikes. Because if people can't watch the shows, if they don't have anything else to do, they're on here listening to dummies like me.
look at the 2024 release schedule. That covers the grim prognosis. How about those consequences? I mean, aside from all the
I can't wait to see Danzel with Millie Bobby Brown on Netflix. Ooh.
Downsizing, layoffs, streaming mostly being a bust except for Netflix. I seem to recall a lot of people in this sphere warning you that this would happen, and that's exactly how it went down. Just like we warned you what would happen when you set out to vandalize and subvert.
Look at all the toys he has. Too bad he's a fake nerd. Look at that. Look at that Doctor Who he has in the call boxes. It's a shame he's never seen a single episode of Doctor Who. That Mary Sue writer.
All of our beloved characters and IPs, including Lord of the Rings, Doctor Who, Star Trek, DC, Star Wars, and Marvel. Things have gotten so bad, Bob Iger, the weatherman, has had to restate for the 5th time in the last calendar year that Disney's going to focus on quality over quantity, but he did admit to something. From Deadline, Disney has killed a few projects amid studio overhaul, says Bob Iger. We've not been that public about it. Considering that Disney Marvel released the Marvels and Echo within a couple of months of each other, Disney Star Wars is going to release the Acolyte later this year.
Yes.
As far as I know, Snow White is still going to happen. I can't imagine what that'd be. This brings us to the woke Hollywood has pushed Hollywood past the point of no return portion of this story. I've always been of the belief that Hollywood could turn things around. They just wouldn't. But
all of it could be turned around. Can it be turned? In other words, it can, but what's the probability of them doing those steps? Very low, very low. You would have to fire the head of every major, Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave. I'm not that they're, but like the heads, the leaders in almost every group, they'd all have to be gone. And then you'd have to wipe out the Whiskey Echo Foxtrot and all of their minions that lead to all of these. So many people would have to be fired and essentially just gone from this for it to even be attempted to be fixed.
Now, even if they wanted to, they couldn't, thanks to their segregationist and anti-meritocracy policies known as DEI, which essentially is a neo-Marxist alphabet theory soup, which prioritizes.
Okay, I guess neo-Marxist is what we're all going with. We tried to say Marxism, and then all you fucking buffs came in here with your dictionaries. Okay, and then we tried to say cultural Marxism, and then you did. Okay, so now it's neo-Marxism and what we're saying. But that is, if you don't like the woke and all the things that we talk about when we're talking about modern politics, that's what we mean. It's neo-Marxism.
Activism over storytelling, which makes it impossible to do the two.
Which breaks down to call everything racist and sexist until you control it.
Main things your industry needs to do: be creative and make money. Cancer has metastasized in every aspect of our culture, including, but not limited to, chips, beer, sports, and it's currently blowing up in gaming right now with the expose of Sweet Baby Inc., a third-party DEI extortion racket where an old video has resurfaced of the CEO admitting it's extortion.
If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for, when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
And this makes you instantly
one of those, you can't be racist to white people, even though she very clearly is half of one.
Think of the BlackRock CEO openly talking about this just a couple of years prior to this video.
You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock, we are forcing behaviors.
And who could forget this from actress Gina Davis?
When you're describing a crowd scene in the script, you have to write a crowd gathers, comma, which is half female.
For the past 7 years, the Gina Davis Institute has broken ground with its machine learning analysis of bias in film and television. But what if the potential for representation on screen could be identified first on the page? A script can be analyzed for representation of characters and percentage of dialogue by gender, race, LGBTQIA, and disabilities. Percentage of non-gender identified speaking characters.
That was also their hierarchy of how they judge things.
Be analyzed for representation of characters and percentage of dialogue by gender, race, LGBTQIA.
So in reverse, disabilities, your queerness, your skin color, and your gender, that's their hierarchy of how they judge things.
And disabilities. Percentage of non-gender identified speaking characters. highlighting opportunities for more balanced representation, and so much more.
Now, this stuff has been out there for years thanks to their
sheer hubris.
Now more people know about it. And I'm sure you've noticed over the last few years how open and comfortable everyone was talking about their not-so-secret agendas with zero fear of consequences. Well, it turns out that there are some.
Yeah, when I tell you that the WEF, the Whiskey Echo Foxtrot, literally wants the population of the planet to be 500 million and to live in 15-minute cities and eat bugs and all of these things, that's not my wacky delusions. I didn't borrow Nerd Wars tinfoil hat. It's on their website.
I'm sure you remember Disney had to admit that going woke damaged their
Baffling.
brand last year. From the post-millennial, Disney announced that they finally realized that they are out of step with their audiences. Oh, that word audiences. We haven't heard that yet. Please keep it in mind. This has had a deep impact on their profitability. In a filing with the SEC, the company referenced that they had experienced risks relating to misalignment with public and consumer tastes.
Well, well, well. How the turntables.
Because one of the main sources of the neo-Marxist cancerous alphabet soup has essentially had to admit the same thing. This is from a BlackRock filing. Matters subject to scrutiny, such as ESG, may be viewed differently by various stakeholders and adversely impact BlackRock's reputation and business. And it hasn't just damaged a brand or a business, it's damaged entire industries.
I can tell you, I remember years ago when I was just watching Gary, and like the term ESG just started to be talked about. We knew things were, we could see the effects of all the wokeism, neo-Marxism, you know, the girl bosses, the Ray, the Captain Marvels, but then we started getting the ESG name, and then we started getting who was pushing those ESGs, and here we are fully formed, and we know who's who and what's what.
Including Hollywood. And while Hollywood has faced a lot of problems in the past, diversity, equity, and inclusion has brought on something new because it led directly to their war with the paying customer, be it coordinated attacks on the fans from companies like Lucasfilm or Amazon, a family brand betraying the family like Disney, preachy adult pretenders, subverted beloved characters, bait and switches, girl bosses. People are sick of it. And most in Hollywood didn't even realize that people were voicing their opinion.
Most of us sane people are. There's still some dummies out there that think there's no woke, don't know what you're talking about, think everything is just fine, have no explanation for why the movies continue to fail, to why the ideology has completely taken over. You could literally be arrested in Canada for misgendering someone, for using incorrect pronouns, for dead naming someone. What are we doing here? And if you don't think it's all connected, then God help you and your ability to rationally discern problems.
Opinions on this because they cared, but it was much less risk averse for all the studios and the giant Silicon Valley corporations to make you and I the enemy rather than call out the activists within their own buildings. And this is the one glaring problem and mortal wound for an industry that the legacy corporate media, the access media, or a cultural historian writing an op-ed for the New York Times will deny ever exists. And until they do, nothing's going to change. And it sounds like they're resigned to that. Back to the New York Times article, one agent said, a lot of us are feeling like we're working in the aftermath of an industry, not an industry. And now the audience that you made your enemy, took for granted, and thought was disposable is now your competition.
Now you're all in big, big trouble.
So while another union fights the corporations that they need over an industry that's sinking and shrinking, it's clear that peak woke Hollywood has finally come to an end, and that's a good thing.
Nerdrotic.com.
Go subscribe to Gary. I mean, of all of us, he gets it. He's the biggest channel in our sphere, and he gets the entire picture. Could that be explained any more? Who is at the top directing all of this and what the effects are? The video game industry will be next if we don't stop it here and now, which is why we're all so fired up about Sweet Baby Inc. It's the same infection that has basically just destroyed Hollywood. It's been for a couple years, but if we don't stop it now, it will take video games. That's it. We are the Iron Age. Why do you think everyone's watching YouTube? Why do you think people are watching 10-year-old shows on streaming? Why do you think? Well, this is it. Let me know what you think of this. Like, share, sub. If you've done that, thank you. If you're gonna do that, thank you. Gary, I hope you hit 1 million very soon. And well,
bye.